This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification button. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King, Steelers Nation South, Rollo Coughlin. And we want to welcome our baseball guru from the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. Even though we're doing hockey, you got to have a Canadian on when you're doing hockey. So Scott Crawford, Director of Operations up there, welcome. Our debate tonight is the top 5 German-born / representatives in hockey history, because there was one player who technically wasn't born in Germany. And we are joined by a former German-born player. He was born in Germany. Played in the NHL with the Washington Capitals. Internationally, he has represented Germany in 6 junior championships, 6 world championships, 2 World Cups, 4-time Olympian. After playing days, he's held several hats, most recently an executive for Germany hockey. So we want to welcome Stefan Ustorf. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me.
Awesome. He is perfect for this debate. Like we said, talking German players today. We will have our Q&A for him after our debate, and we're going to jump in, and we're going to start with Brian.
Okay, so I got Marco Stern, and 6 foot, 195-pound left winger, Marco Stern. He started off in the German Hockey League, the DEL, played for a couple of seasons, 95, 96, 96, 97, with EV Landshut, and he helped to turn that troubled franchise around. He was taken 21st overall in the 1996 NHL draft by the San Jose Sharks. From the 1997 season all the way to the 2009-10 season, he was a model of consistency. He scored at least 10 goals in each of his first 4 seasons, then scored at least 20 goals in 8 of his next 11 seasons. If Sturm stayed healthy, you could pretty much pencil him in for 20 goals. In 1999, he made the NHL All-Star team, but his most productive season was 2007-8. With the Boston Bruins, when he netted 27 goals, added 29 assists for a total of 56 points, and he had his best career numbers on the power play with 10 goals and 13 assists. He also scored the game-winning goal against the Habs in the playoffs with less than 3 minutes to go to force the Game 7. Sturm, pretty much the most productive German player in the league until he was surpassed by Leon Draisaitl in recent years. Internationally, Sturm competed for Team Germany many times, 4 times for the IIHF World Championships, 2 Winter Olympics, and 1 World Cup. And just as a side note, Sturm is passing on his leadership and craftiness on to the next generation. He's now the head coach of the Ontario Reign, one of the best teams in the AHL right now.
Stefan, I will come to you. He's a two-way player, Marco. He's been Selke votes twice in his career, Lady Bing 3 times. He's gotten votes. What are your thoughts on Marco?
Marco was the first German forward. Not the first, maybe Jochen Hecht was before him, but Marco was the guy that established himself the quickest. I don't think he ever spent a day in the minors. I think he came to North America, to San Jose, and from the first camp on, he played in the NHL. So he's definitely up there as far as the best Germans ever. Due to his consistency, he was an unbelievable skater. Speed was his biggest weapon, and his hockey smarts. He was a very intelligent player. He quickly understood that he was a high-scoring guy coming out of Germany, but he quickly understood that he needed to change his game around a little bit to stay in the NHL, and he did that. And he was a guy. I had a chance to play with him in a few international tournaments. He was always a leader. He was a fun guy to be around, and definitely one of the best we ever produced.
Let's go to Ole the goalie, Olaf Kolzig.
All right, let's go to the goalie here. We got Olaf Kolzig, first-round draft pick, of course, in 1989. Spent some time in Germany. Growing up, he played from 1989 right after he was picked up to 2009, all with Washington except one season, his last year at Tampa Bay. Played 719 games, won 303 of them, 2.71 goals against, and a 906 save percentage. You look at his win-loss record is not great, but he didn't play on the greatest teams during his career, throughout the whole career, because he almost lost as many games as he won. But that's, again, not always the goalie's fault, of course. Only 7 Germans have played more than Olaf Kolzig's 719 games. So, I mean, and I know we're comparing goalies to players, but still, that many games in the NHL is amazing. He ranks 26th all time on games, 27th all time in saves and minutes played, and 37th all time on in wins. So I mean, he's right up there, no matter where he's from. Top goalie of all time. He won the King Clancy Award. He won the Vezina, and he was a 2-time All-Star. So one of the best from the country for sure.
Yes, I know you played with him, Stefan. What are your thoughts? How could you beat him? He was a very solid goalie. As Scott said, his numbers, wins, loss-wise, he did pick up a lot of losses when Washington was tanking the last few of his years to get those draft picks and get Ovechkin. So not really his fault there, but.
No, he was. I think when you really boil it down to it, he's a little. Ole is, for me, is a little bit of a borderline guy. I mean, he's a very good friend of mine. We spent a lot of time together, but he's never really he's not German in a technical sense that he learned to play hockey in Canada, right? Ole was born in South Africa. His parents were in the hotel business at the time. That's why he moved around a lot. And Ole didn't find out that he was eligible to play for the German national team until he was like 22, 23 years old. I think the first time was when we were both together in Washington. We found out that he has a German passport, so he played the '96 World Cup for us. But that said, he is German. He was born there, and he's, for me, the best German goaltender we've ever produced. His longevity, consistency, all that kind of stuff. Vezina Trophy winner. I think that all speaks for itself, and the numbers played, like the games played too, 700 something games played in the NHL is a big number for a goaltender. So, in my opinion, yes, we have some good other ones with Grubauer, with Thomas Greiss. There's some other Germans that never made it to the NHL that were excellent goalies in international hockey, but I think Ole definitely has the biggest resume, and so for me, he is the best German goalie ever.
If you're a fan of Ole the goalie, go in our archives. He's been on the show. We did a goalie debate with him. Fantastic guy. But since we mentioned Philippe Grubauer, we're going to go there. And he was born in Rosenheim, Germany, so officially born in Germany. Drafted by the Washington Capitals in 2010, debuted in 2012 with the Caps, helped them win a Stanley Cup in 2018. Then he went to Colorado. Then the Seattle Kraken is where he's at now as a goalie. So he is still active. As of recording this show, he's got a record of 157, 120, and 32, 2.59 goals against average, and a 910 save percentage. So pretty nice stats. Being on expansion teams aren't like it was in the 90s when you'd win like 10 games. So Seattle is, they can play some defense in front of him. He has a chance. He has a chance in 2026 to start for the Olympic team. He'll only be 34 years old. We'll see if that works out. But his efforts in 2018 will be remembered forever by Washington fans. Holtby wasn't having a Holtby type season, that he would normally have. He was having a tough season. So Philippe took over, saved their season, led them to the playoffs. Now he was replaced after a few games in the playoffs by Holtby, and it worked out. The Caps go on, they win the Stanley Cup, but they would not have won it without him. So how do you beat Grubauer? Does he have any weaknesses?
No, not really. I think that's probably the best part of his game is the fact that he's good at everything. He, like the one thing, maybe not the biggest guy in the world, but very agile, great skater for a goaltender. And also, there's, he's had some consistency issues in the course of his career. I don't think Colorado really, ended up being exactly how he wanted it. But overall, when you play that long and you win a Stanley Cup, in fact, Washington doesn't win that Stanley Cup without Philippe Grubauer, even if he didn't start the majority of the playoff games. He was a huge part of that team, and that speaks for his consistency and his skill. So, you don't play in the NHL that long on such high level teams if you're not a good goaltender, and he is definitely that. He's a good goaltender.
Rollo, give us your first player.
I'm gonna go with Dieter Hagen from Kaufbauer Bayern, West Germany. He's a German Olympic icon. There are only 4 players in the world who have participated in 5 Olympic tournaments. and Didi is one of the four. He tallied 111 goals and 290 national team appearances, and his 290 national team appearances places him 13th all time for national team games. He was a national team captain from 96 to 99 and was named ice hockey's best left winger in German hockey history. He was Germany's league leader in their league in goals in 89 and 92, and German Player of the Year in 92. He was drafted in the 81 NHL entry draft, but never signed a contract. But that's probably good because he took part and won 6 Bundesliga titles, and he would cement his legacy as Germany's greatest hockey player.
6 titles over there in Germany. By any chance, Stefan, do you know why he didn't come to the NHL?
You know, it's funny. Didi is from my hometown. We're from the same place, and he was an idol of mine growing up. Didi scored 50 goals as a 17-year-old in pro hockey in his first year. He didn't come to North America because of money. Very simple. He wasn't willing to sign a 2-way contract with the Montreal Canadiens because he was making a lot of money in Germany. And Didi, he didn't speak English very well. He was a pretty, comfortable guy as far as his surroundings. He needed to be in a good space, and he just never decided to go, which I think is a total shame because growing up watching him and having played with him, he is top 3 of the most talented players I ever played with. He was like you guys said, he was an international stud. I know TSN every Christmas time at the under 20 World Championships, they put together a team of the greatest under 20 players in the history of the tournament, and Dieter Hagen is on that team. He led the World Championships in scoring. He played in 5 Olympics. To me, and he was drafted in the 2nd round in 1981 during a time when there was 21 teams in the league. So probably would have made him a first rounder nowadays at a time when Germans weren't touched, right? We like nobody drafted Germans in 81. And it's a shame that he never played in the NHL because I'm convinced, it's easy to say right now, but I'm convinced he would have been able to play in that league and score goals in that league. He was one of the most natural goal scorers I ever played hockey with. His offensive instincts were phenomenal. And to me, it's a shame that he never tried the NHL because, we have other players that spend a lot of time over there that some people rank in front of him. But as far as pure talent goes and what he's done on the international level, Didi is one of a kind, and in my opinion, the best German left winger we ever produced.
Brian, who's your second player?
All right, I got Christian Ehrhoff, 6'2", 196-pound defenseman. Ehrhoff, he watched a video of the great Bobby Orr as a child, and it inspired him to become an offensive-minded defenseman. He developed a hard shot. He had a very good skating ability. Throughout his NHL career, he was able to net 74 goals, 29 power play goals, 129 power play assists. And he was able to establish a 7-year streak with 80 or more blocks, showing his dedication in the defensive zone as well. Ehrhoff played 2 seasons with the Canucks, and after both, he was given the Babe Pratt Trophy for best defenseman on the team. Also with the Canucks, he set the franchise record for highest plus minus in a single season with plus 36 in 2009-10. Internationally, Ehrhoff played for Team Germany on 12 different occasions, once in the World Cup, 4 Winter Olympic Games, and 7 times in the World Championships. In 2010, he was named to the World Championships All-Star team, and he helped Team Germany to a silver medal in the 2018 Olympics. Before his NHL days, he played 4 seasons in the German Hockey League, leaving a champion after he helped Krefeld to the ultimate prize, recording 9 points in the postseason along the way.
Very underrated defenseman, Stefan. He actually received 8th and 9th place in the Norris Trophy vote in 2 consecutive years there. What are your thoughts on his game?
Well, I think it's like you said, underrated. I think Christian became a little bit of a victim of that massive contract he signed with, I think it was Buffalo, where he ended up getting bought out, which that always kind of shines a negative light on a guy, which he doesn't deserve. He was a rock solid NHL defenseman that produced good numbers on the power play, was willing to put his body on the line, blocking shots. He was, in my opinion, was actually a little bit underrated, like in comparison to a lot of guys during his time in the NHL. Played, I think, well over 700 games in the league, and just he was just really, really solid skater, moved the puck well, had a big shot. He did everything well, and was also never a defensive liability in my eyes. So really, really good, solid defenseman. He actually he just came back after having retired for 5 years. He actually spent the last year playing in his hometown in Krefeld in the second league in Germany for one more year at the age of, I think he's 44 maybe right now or something like that.
I think he's 41.
41. Okay. He just announced his retirement again. So I think he's finally done. But really, really solid player, NHL player. And, he was also, before he went over to North America, when Krefeld won a championship, he was one of the key players on that team, and he was only 20 years old at that time. So really good, solid player.
So our next player, I know Penguins fans might be a little familiar with him because Tom Kuhnackel is his son. So we're going to go Eric Kuhnackel next.
We're talking about Eric Kuhnackel here. He's, of course, he's another one of the players that never went to the NHL, and the Bleacher Report considered him the 8th best hockey player to never play in the NHL. So, I mean, there's lots of surveys out there, but I found that one with Bleacher Report. Eric played in German hockey player in the 70s and 80s. He won 4 German championships, mostly in the 70s into the early 80s. He was 3 times Player of the Year. He played 774 games over in Germany. He scored 724 goals and 1,431 points. So he basically had 2 points for every single game he played on average. And getting out of Germany, playing internationally, he played 211 international games and scored 131 goals. He's a 3-time Olympian. He played in 7 World Championships for Germany. He's in the German Ice Hockey Hall of Fame. He's in the International Ice Hockey Hall of Fame. He's in the German Sports Hall of Fame. And he was named the German Ice Hockey Player of the Century in 1999. So Eric never played in the NHL, but he was, and maybe similar reasons why I'd love to find out why maybe he didn't go over. But he's one of the best at all time.
Is he Germany's Gretzky, Stefan?
He was. There's another player coming up that we're going to talk about, I think, who took over that place. But Eric Kuhnackel was the most dominant player in the German leagues ever. Like, nobody dominated the game the way he did when he was at his best. He was, I think Eric was 6'6", so he was a massive man. He was a big man, skated extremely well for being such a big man, and was able to almost dominate at will in during his prime in the German Hockey League. And that showed too internationally. I think he also led the World Championships in scoring 1 or 2 times, which wasn't something that German players did back in the day. Won a bronze medal with Germany in the Olympics in Innsbruck in '76. And again, right, like, it's always easy or like you can't really compare, but at 6'6" with his skating ability and skill, I am convinced that Eric Kuhnackel would have been able to play in the NHL, and not just play in the NHL, but also play well in the NHL. I mean, the one thing, especially during his prime, if you take the NHL during the times that Eric Kuhnackel dominated international hockey and German hockey, it was a pretty rough league. And that is something that we in Germany at that time, or even later on during my time, we weren't used to that, right? I mean, there was no fighting in German hockey. We didn't play the game that way. So it would have been definitely something to see, because as a 6'6" guy, he would have been challenged. Guys would have tried to intimidate him and go after him. So the question is, how would he have responded to that? From the pure hockey IQ and skill level, no questions asked. During his prime, one of the best players in the world. And
At
until
6.
recently, no questions asked, best German hockey player ever. But we got a different guy who kind of took over.
At 6'6", that's like Mario size there, Mario Lemieux size.
Yeah.
That's huge
And
coming down the ice.
And to be honest with you, and now obviously he wasn't Mario Lemieux, but he dominated the German league like Mario dominated the NHL. Now, obviously that doesn't really compare, but it gives you kind of an idea how he played the game. I mean, if Eric Kuhnhackl didn't want you to get the puck, you didn't get the puck, you know, so that's how good he was.
Well, we're going to do our last defenseman today, and that is Uwe Krupp, and I'm excited to represent him because he was a player when I was younger that I always kind of like. I thought he was solid in every aspect of the game, and being a defenseman, I respected the way he played. But born in Cologne, Germany, so another guy born in Germany. NHL from '87 to '03 with the Sabres, Islanders, Nordiques / Avalanche. He was there for that move. Red Wings, and finished out his career. I think he had 4 games with the Thrashers there at the end. I think everybody pretty much went to the Thrashers at the end of their career there for a while. But he repped Germany at 3 junior championships, 2 world championships, and the '98 Olympic Games. He has 2 Stanley Cups in the NHL. He is a 2-time All-Star. In 2020, he was named to the International All-Time Germany team. So that tells you what they thought of his defensive play. And, of course, he's in the IIHF Hall of Fame and the German Ice Hockey Hall of Fames. He also coached German's international team. He worked his way up through the ranks and became their head coach. Now, something that a lot of people probably don't know this about him, but he scored what was a game-changing goal in the NHL. It was the final game of the 1990 season. In overtime, Buffalo versus Pittsburgh. Pens win, they make the playoffs. But Uwe scores in overtime, wins it for the Sabres, knocks the Penguins out of the playoffs, dropping their draft pick all the way down to number 4. And that allowed the Penguins to draft some guy named Jaromir Jagr. We all know how that turned out. So that was just an absolute huge goal in Pittsburgh history. So, but Uwe, great defenseman. I can't say enough about him. I think, in my opinion, he's Germany's best defenseman all time. But Stefan, you're the professional. What can you tell us about Uwe?
Well, Uwe left. Uwe was the first guy, really. Uwe was the first German NHL regular. I mean, Uli Hemer came before him and played about 170 games with the New Jersey Devils, but Uwe Krupp went as a young kid after getting drafted in I think the 12th round or whatever, and just said, no, I'm doing this. I want to go try playing the NHL. He went over there and he never looked back. He quickly established himself, you know, as a solid NHL defenseman that even so he was 6'6", you know, could produce offensively. He had some good numbers. He was an all-star. You know, he was usually a power play option. I think if Uwe would have been able to stay healthy, he would have easily eclipsed the 1,000-game mark and would have even be held in a higher regard than he already is right now. If you take a look at his entire career and what he's done and how he ended up being like the first real German to play an everyday role in the NHL, win a Stanley Cup, yeah, I think it's easy to say that he is the best German defenseman of all time. I would put him there. I mean, we have other guys like, you know, Udo Kiesling's name always comes up, a guy who's for a long time held the record for the most international games in the world with 320, played in I don't know how many Olympics, all that kind of stuff. But he never, you know, Uwe did it at the NHL level. And so to me, you know, if you're able to play that many games and have that kind of an impact at the highest level possible, that puts you a step ahead in my book. So yeah, Uwe, probably best German defenseman we've ever had.
Our final player tonight, he's probably currently top 10 player in the NHL, maybe top 5. That argument could be made. I could see him right at number 5 there. We're going Draisaitl.
Leon Draisaitl. Now, he is the Wayne Gretzky of German hockey. He's not, like you said, not only is he Germany's greatest player, he's one of hockey's best players right now. He was taken in the 2014 NHL entry draft, and he's the first German to win the Art Ross Trophy, the Hart Trophy, and the Ted Lindsay Award for most outstanding player. In 2019, he became the 6th Edmonton Oiler to score 50 goals in a season and the only German to score 50 goals in a season. And he's done it 3 times. He has 5 seasons of 40-plus goals in a season. And right now, he's got 8 of the top 10 scoring seasons by a German in NHL history. Right now, he's in the league. He's 7th in points, 13th in goals, and 7th in assists. Now, put this in perspective. In German history, hockey player history, the next closest player to him in points, he's 359 points ahead of him and played 224 less games. He's a 5-time All-Star. He was AHL first team in 2020 and second team in 2023. So he is the Wayne Gretzky of German hockey.
So, Stefan, my question on Draisaitl here is there are a lot of people out there, and I don't even know why they think this. They say, if Draisaitl's not with McDavid, how good is he? You tell us how good he is.
To me, Leon Draisaitl is a top 5 player in the NHL right now, in the world right now. He is that good. It's easy to say if it wasn't for McDavid. Well, I'll turn that around and say, does McDavid get the numbers he does without Draisaitl? I mean, you have players that you play with. Yager and Lemieux were a tandem. They played with each other. Does that make one less valuable than the other? Those kind of things go together. Wayne Gretzky had some pretty good players around him with Coffey, with Messier, with Curry. There's a couple of Hall of Famers that he lined up with on a pretty consistent basis. That doesn't take anything away from Wayne Gretzky. And I don't think Leon should have to, you can't take anything away from Leon, for playing on the same team and sometimes on the same line as Connor McDavid. It is what it is. But Leon Draisaitl's numbers, his consistency, that speaks for itself. Our country has never produced a hockey player like that. He is a top 5 player in the world right now, and he has been, in my opinion, for the last 5 years. And I think he's only going to get better. He's got 3 consecutive 100-point seasons, if not more. I might be wrong on that, and he's a dominant force. So, there's no question that he's the best we've ever produced as a country. And moving forward, his numbers are just going to get bigger. We got a couple of young guys coming up, Stützle, Peterka, Reichel, all great young players, first-round picks. They're all going to have great careers in the NHL. At this point, I don't see anybody sniffing Leon. He's just in a class by himself as far as Germans go. And when you put together the best players in the NHL and you don't have him in your top 5, maybe top 10, then in my opinion, you don't know what you're talking about. So.
Well, let's move into our vote. Cannot pick your own. Scott, I'm giving you first pick tonight.
All right.
Working out of your wheelhouse tonight. I appreciate it.
all those hockey players. I go with Draisaitl. Just what we talked about. He's still playing currency. Don't know what his career is going to end up as, but what he's done so far. I mean, how do you touch that? And he's young and he's getting better each year. So I'm going with him.
Brian.
I got to go with the guy who was blazing the trail to the NHL, Uwe Krupp. I think what he did was very important.
Okay. Rollo?
It's tough. Go with Ole the goalie.
Got to get a goalie on the list, absolutely. And yeah, you know what? I really liked the argument on Kuhnhackl. I mean, it's hard to say when you're like, what was it, the player of the century or something?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't argue with that. So I'm taking Kuhnhackl. Plus, I like it when I get to see, people that I grew up with, but now I get to see their kids play. I think that's really cool. So I'm down with that too. So Stefan, we come to you. You got to pick one that's left. We got Ehrhoff, Stern, Grubauer, Hagen. Who would you pick out of what's left?
Wow, that's a tough one for me. But it's a toss-up for me between Dieter Hagen and Marco Sturm. But the same as I said before, you got to go with a guy who did it at the highest level for a long period of time. So I'm going to put Marco Sturm just slightly ahead of Dieter Hagen here.
All right, there you go. You got Legacy Bow's top 5 German-born / representative players of all time. Nice job, guys. Let's move into our Q&A. Scott, you got 2 on the list. I'm going to give you first question, then we'll go Rollo, Brian, me.
All right, Stefan, I got a question about the Olympics here for you. You played in 4 of them, I believe. Your first one in the early mid '90s, and your last one in the late 2000s. What did you see difference between your first Olympics and your last Olympics on how much better international competition got?
Well, I think the biggest difference was that I played in Olympics with NHL players and without, right? My first Olympics in Lillehammer was the famous Forsberg move, right? Paul Kariya played in that tournament, but it was no NHL players. And after that, in '98 in Nagano, especially Salt Lake City, and after in Milan, in Turin, sorry, we had NHL players. And the level of hockey with the NHL players, it's just you can't compare. You got the best players. If I look back at Team Canada at the Salt Lake City Olympics, if you look at that lineup there, I felt like there's 15 Hall of Famers in that group. So I think that was the biggest difference as far as the level goes. It gave the tournament also, it gave it a different feel and a different standing, right? Like my first Olympics, the hockey, it was a part of the tournament. It was great, part of the Olympics. We had fan support and all that. But once the NHL guys showed up, it ended up being a different animal. So,
Stefan, you scored your first NHL goal against Dallas.
Yeah.
Do you remember the goal? And can you tell us about what the feeling and the moment of scoring the goal?
I do remember it. It was a 3-on-1 situation. I came in on the left side, gave the puck to Pat Peak up high in the slot. He gave it right back to me, and I ended up putting it in. And the feeling was unbelievable. I think it was my 4th or 5th NHL game, and it kind of just, like it takes some time. At the time when you're doing it, you don't really feel like what impact it has. But then, when you get older, you realize how special it really was. And I mean, I felt great until the period was over, and I got in the dressing room, and my coach ripped me a new one because of some defensive play I didn't make. So it just put me back in my place really quick again. But it was awesome. I mean, there's something that nobody can ever take away from me. So it was a good feeling.
What was it, Andy Mogan net?
No, it was Darcy Wakaluk.
Oh, okay, backup. All right,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. I did. Washington came to town, so people played their backup. That was good for me.
So, Stefan, Team Germany was able to win Olympic silver in 2018 in South Korea and was able to win silver in 2023 at the World Championships. So do you see Team Germany like maybe getting that elusive gold medal soon?
That's a big stretch, but let's say it this way. I would love to see, like, thankfully now in the new Olympics, the NHL players are coming back, and I can't wait to see us put our best team on the ice, because I do believe we can scare some people. We got a lot of talent over the last couple of years that we were able to produce, and obviously we don't need to talk Canada, the US. Those are different animals when they put their best on the ice. But in a tournament that's only 2 weeks long, a lot of things can happen. And we're at a point now where I think the best way to describe it for me is we are good enough to win medals in international tournaments. We shouldn't go into a tournament and expect it, but we definitely shouldn't be surprised by it either, because we have shown over the last couple of years that we're good enough and that could actually happen.
So you had to retire due to CTE. Can you walk us through what post-concussion symptoms looked like for you? How long did they last? Or do you still have those effects today?
I do still have those effects today. I still have issues from that injury. You learn to live with it, right? You start to learn your limitations. You know what you can and cannot do. It took me a solid, I'd say, 3 years to get back to functioning normal, to get back to work, to be able to do the daily things that I needed to do, to get back into a normal job in hockey, and yeah, it was just, there's a lot of things that are happening. I know every concussion, every person's different as far as that goes. Everybody has different symptoms, but for me, it was really all the ones you read about, right? It was the daily headaches, it was the mood swings, it was the temper issues, it was the depression, all of that stuff. I did it all really, and I had a really good doctor that I found finally, Dr. Collins in Pittsburgh, but mostly really it was my family that helped me get through it. So yeah, it wasn't fun, and now in the position that I'm in as a GM in a league, I definitely pay closer attention to it than I ever have as a player.
Raul, I'm gonna give you one more, and then Brian finish us out.
So you played in the NHL playoffs your rookie season. What's truly the difference between playoff hockey and regular season hockey?
The intensity, everybody is willing to do whatever it takes, right? And for me, it was a really interesting, like, eye opener, because we played Pittsburgh, and you look at Pittsburgh's lineup in that it was let's say the first power play unit was Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, Ron Francis, Peter Nedved, and Sergei Zubov. So like the skill level was off the charts. And when you played him in the regular season, right? I mean, Jaromir Jagr, with all the skill in the world and all that, wasn't really at times in game 63 of the season or something like that. He wasn't really coming back on the back check or something like that. But in the playoffs, everybody does, and everybody is willing to do whatever. And I remember we played Pittsburgh, and it was at the time, I think it was the second or third longest game in NHL history, 4 overtimes and all that. And in that game, Mario Lemieux got kicked out of the game for fighting. So that just shows you what people were willing to do, and how invested everybody is at that point of the year. And it just opened my eyes that there's a whole nother level to hockey that I wasn't even aware of.
So, Stefan, during your hockey career, you played with 5 different German clubs and, of course, Team Germany, many different occasions. You were inducted into the German Ice Hockey Hall of Fame. So, to close us out, tell us what that honor meant to you.
It's something that you never really think of when you're playing or when you start your career, and it's just something that doesn't, enter your mind at all. And then all of a sudden, after you're done playing, somebody calls you and says, hey, we would like to do that. And there's just, like, hockey, that's one of the only days. It's that and your number get retired. Those are really the only 2 days in your career where it's only about you, right? Where you're part of a team. Everything you do is dependent upon your line mates, your teammates, everybody, your coaching staff and all that. And everything you accomplish in those times is because of everybody else around you. And then, the Hall of Fame then is the end product of it. But it's the one day where it's actually okay for you to feel good about what you did. You're like, okay, good, this is nice. And you can kind of, feel thankful for everything that happened. But it's one day where it's about you. And that's kind of nice to have as a player that plays 21 years in a team sport, right? Everything you do is about your teammates. So it's nice to have one night where it's like that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You're one of Germany's top players of all time. We appreciate you coming on.
I really appreciate you guys having me. Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
Remind everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification button. We'll see everybody next time. Everyone have a great night.